And so for me, it was really Augustine. When I finally set aside a month of my life to just pound through on the Trinity in my doctoral work, that was what kind of turned the corner for me. Partly because the rough handling of Augustine by the modern Trinitarian Renaissance authors is really astonishing. Even authors who I learned a lot from and value in an ongoing way. Colin Gutton, who when he's good can be very good. But his handling of Augustine is like famously horrible. Like everyone backs off and says, stop, just stop talking about him. You don't have to say things about Augustine. You could just ignore him if you don't like him. So turning to the primary text, the contrast between what people say you're going to find in Augustine and what you actually find in Augustine was really eye-opening for me. And it, without making me a conspiracy theorist, it did make me look around and say, what else have I been lied to about?
Yeah, I've gotten to just stuck with Coleridge, right? That's
right. Yeah, Colin Gutton's creative doctrinal energy is just wonderful and stimulating and all that. But the historical theology stuff is baffling.
Yeah, Fred, I really resonate with what you said. When I look back very early on, it was Augustine. His Confessions in particular, it turned my whole world upside down. I think for a lot of reasons. One is here he is modeling theology in a way that I just not seen by anyone. And so that itself was irresistible. But as soon as I started to probe into Confessions, and almost immediately the way he starts to contemplate God, he doesn't say it, but this is classical theism coming through in a very, very beautiful rhetoric, of course, but in a very careful way at the same time. And then I would say, yeah, I mean, later, if I had to say, what is it that took you even deeper beyond the surface? I think one of the books would be Augustine on the Trinity. I think at that point I realized there is a world of difference between a type of Nicene Trinitarianism, East and West, and what I was just reading. I too read Moltmann, and I just thought, only one of these men can be right. So that was instrumental for me.
Yeah, Matthew, I could jump in there. The thing about Augustine, because I had the same experience in terms of turning the corner on some of these things with him. The thing about Augustine is when you read De Trin, you actually can pretty early on understand what it means to be pro-Nicene in your Trinitarian theology, even if you don't know that label. Like he kind of lays down the rules pretty quickly. And I think persuasively shows you that's the biblical way to read about the Trinity. And so it's almost as complex as that book can be in some ways. It's also a very quick on-ramp.
Yes.
Once you've been persuaded, you're kind of like, okay, now I'm on, I guess, the team that everyone said was the baddies. But I think they're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something for everyone, right? Because, Fred, you mentioned about the Bible. Augustine, in many ways, to your point, Scott, Augustine he's taking you right to the scriptures, but it's almost as if, at least for me, it was a whole new way of interpreting the scriptures than I had been taught. And yeah, I don't want to be conspiracy theory, but I had not read Ephesians that way before. And suddenly I'm sitting down side by side with Augustine, and he's showing me things that I had just overlooked completely. But then, like you said, Scott, it was more than that. It wasn't just a Nicene hermeneutic, which was crucial, but it was even, by the time you finish it, he's in his own very creative way, he's putting everything together. It's difficult to walk away from that book and not have a very robust understanding of everything from, say, eternal generation to inseparable operations. Yeah.